about this a couple of times, that the projected base tax rate, that is what this local education budget is doing to your taxes. Last year was 1.34. And as a result of this budget, that will be lower. It will be 1.3. If that was the only way the taxes were calculated, your taxes would go down. But taxes are calculated not only on your local education budget, but also based on the common level of appraisal, which is determined by the state based on the projected cost of property around the state. And because not all communities are doing appraisals at the same time, they put forward every year this CLA number to try to make sure that everybody in the state is being treated similarly with regard to increases overall in property values. Because Baltimore did their appraisals relatively recently, they are seeing some differences from the other three towns. But if you look at the CLA, when the CLA decreases, your property taxes go up. The CLA for Andover, Cavendish, and Chester have all gone down considerably throughout the state, which means property taxes wind up being increased. And the projected tax rate, therefore, for our four towns, based on the CLA and on our base tax rate, Andover would see a projected increase of 12%. Baltimore is going to see a decrease because they already saw the mammoth increase from their property taxes when the appraisal was done. Cavendish would see an increase of 9.74 and Chester of 8.84. I'm going to say again, that's not because of your local education budget. That is because of the CLA, which we have no control over. The local education budget, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit further here. The local education budget is in fact reducing the tax rate that you would otherwise pay because of the CLA. So as we are showing here, Cheryl did a lovely job of creating this. The taxes that increase based on $100,000 of home value, and again, we know nobody's got a $100,000 house. This is so the math is easier to do. For every $100,000 your house is worth, based on the CLA, Andover will pay $228.90 more. But because of this education budget, they will not pay $228.90. They will pay $198.90 because the base tax rate of this local education budget is lowering what you will pay when taken into account with the CLA. For Cavendish, that's a difference of 189, and instead it will be at 159. And Chester, it would have been 165, but this budget will have you paying 135. Baltimore, again, is the anomaly because they already did their appraisal, so their CLA is in a different place than everyone else. These are our numbers. We've gone through them, and I'm glad to answer questions for people about where all of this comes from. I understand how incredibly complicated it is. The new funding formula, which is designed to allow districts that have more students living in poverty and to be able to raise more money without affecting the taxes of the local area. Whatever you think of that idea, when they were putting it into effect, they were not thinking that the same year that that change happened would be the year that the CLA went through the roof. And as a result of those two things, the intent was to see everybody's base tax rates stay the same or potentially go down. That's not happening because of the CLA, which we have no control over. I understand that the message everybody has heard from the governor and the state is that your property taxes are going up by 18%. That is a statement that may well be true as an average for the state. It is not true for anybody in the TRSU. The property taxes for all of the towns within the TRSU are well below that number. I can answer your question. Or Cheryl will whisper them to me. What she said.
Excuse me. The COVID money that was sent to Vermont. Did this school district hire new teachers with that money?
So what the money that we used from COVID has to have been fully spent by September of this year. So we hired temporary coordinators. We hired a K-6 literacy coordinator with the expectation that that job would end at the end of this year, which it is. We hired a K-12 math coordinator with the expectation that that job would stop at the end of this year, which it is. In terms of hiring teachers, we hired at the first year of COVID, when we were seeing increases in student need, we hired for within this building, actually for GM, we hired an additional special educator, and then we proposed the following year that position would continue and be in the general budget. But we did not use the ESSER fund to put things in that we were trying to avoid the ESSER cliff of putting things in and then having the money go away and having to stuff it into the budget. So most of our money was spent on professional development for our teachers or for things that we knew were going to come to a conclusion at this point. Other questions? But it hasn't happened yet. I mean, they put it forwards, right? So there is also out there, which you may hear about, the state is trying to respond to the fact that a third of the SU and district budgets around the state failed. I was actually in a meeting with other superintendents and some legislators this afternoon. Because there are multiple places that have failed more than once, although some of them have passed on their second try, that the legislators are responding because people have said we need to send a message to the states. So there is a response of trying to put together a bill that is going to try to place some controls on the rise or fall of the yield and on the description of the funding formula and language that would go into ballots to try to make all of this be explained more clearly. That information is still it has not been passed. They are still looking at it and changing it. The Vermont Superintendents Association, Vermont Principal Association, Vermont School Board Association, and Vermont School Business Administrators Organization have all come out to say that it would be a colossal mistake to do a rush into a reactionary response of there's a problem, so let's change the funding formula again, or let's raise the yield or lower the yield or put new language in. Now, people want to send a message that I think the state has heard the message, which is they need to do something. The message from your various educational organizations is the thing to do is to look at the root causes of the difficulty in funding education and address those. The thing to do is not to change the way the language is worded on the ballot or to make a rushed change to the funding formula, which would certainly not, would not result in anybody having a better understanding what is happening. But that information is out there, and we have had some people see it and think that those proposed changes, which have not happened, would happen for this year, for these votes. That's not. What we're putting in front of you here is the proposed tax rates for next year, as to the best of everybody's ability. And any changes that the state is proposing would not be until the FY 26 year. Other questions? If you don't have them now and you think of them, give me a call, send me an email. I'm glad to answer any questions that people have. We want you to understand it, and we know how absurdly convoluted it is. Right? Thank you. All of that information is on the TRSU website. There's a folder for the Green Mountain proposed budget. You can see all of those charts and the description of what was. And we hope everybody will go vote. However you vote.
And there's informational packets up here if you want them to add the budget and the highlights.
It's just written down your votes.
Other questions? Online.
No answer.
We're going to move into the meeting, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 8. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in military time here, so I try to convert it. 6:20.
Recording in progress.
Yeah. And for roll call, I see everybody here except for Katie Murphy and Susan Bears online. All right, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. And then we're going to be approving minutes for 2 different meetings. So the first one is March 21st, 2024. Everyone reviewed it?
Yep.
Any changes? Concerns? Okay. Motion to approve?
Move.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, those are approved. And then for April 3rd, 2024, special meeting. Questions, changes, concerns? No? Motion to approve?
Move.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye. Yep.
Opposed? Pass. Books.
Okay. I'll start with the baseball and softball season, because Lexi is currently at a baseball game. So.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm not sure about the outcome of that yet, but the girls softball team has joined the Springfield's softball team this season. And the girls were working hard in the preseason to do well in the season of softball, and for prom, the prom's it was announced to be the Northern Light. And juniors and seniors are excited for it. And the third floor down on the first floor of the school is holding dresses for anyone that would like to get a free dress down there. And prom is being held at a new location in Ludlow this year. The track season has kicked up, and the most recent meet was on Tuesday. Students performed well, and they're looking forward to the rest of the season. And I think about 50 kids signed up for the track season this year. So
That's awesome.
Seniors are making their college decisions. And there's typically a board outside of guidance made where seniors will put their name in the college that they've chosen. And then the juniors took the SATs on Wednesday and the SBAC test on Tuesday. And sophomores also took the PSATs on Tuesday. So students are relieved the testing period's over and we're going to go back to our normal schedules.
Where is the prom going to be held?
I'm not exactly sure, but Lexi's on the prom committee, so I was,
Fox Run.
Calcutta's. Nice.
Oh, cool. That's great. You're giving me all sorts of nostalgia.
Any questions for Jack?
Have the sixth graders who are joining the track and coming in from other schools,
Yeah.
how are they doing?
I've heard pretty good things. I haven't heard much from them, but I think last year they were doing that as well, and they all seemed pretty happy with it. They were, a lot of them would talk to the high schoolers and stuff, get tips and stuff.
Well, the sixth graders are thrilled. At least the ones that I've talked to. Very cool.
Questions?
That's great. Thank you.
We're going to move on to superintendent's report.
Right, let's see. Climate surveys were sent out to all staff and families about 2.5 weeks ago, just before the week before the break. We closed that to staff today, and we will close it for our families. We were holding it open until tomorrow because there were a couple of school events that our principals were hoping to get a few more people to respond to. The links were emailed to everyone. We're glad to have people weigh in. So any families that want to have one more day to do that, we'll close it tomorrow. And please, if you have things that you want us to know about, what you like or what you don't just tell Facebook or your neighbor, tell us so that we can weigh in about it. Once all of those are closed, we share the results first with the principals, then with the board and with the public, so that will get posted on the TRSU website. We'll have a discussion about it, at least to begin with, in May. The most value from it comes not just from what people have said this year, but in doing a comparison over, we've been asking the same questions now for several years in a row, and being able to look at what changes have occurred, either better or worse, is a valuable thing for our administrators. So we'll share that with all of you once we've finalized. We did have, the students took just before break, I think I mentioned this at one of our TRSU meetings, but 191 students, which is about 2/3, responded, which is, we wish we could get 2/3 of our parents and staff to respond. So it's really, and we will share some of those results as well, although we'll redact some of the occasional language. Contracts went out to all of our teachers before the break. Their deadline was to have them all signed by yesterday, and I believe at this point we have them back from everyone other than people who have informed us that they are either retiring or moving on. And we had this year only 3 people ask for an extension. Usually we have more. This has been the most rapid and most efficient sending them out and having them all come back in my experience, which means we're not dealing with it week after week. And just as a shout out to our human resources person, Allison Sexton, when in my first year here, we had people who had still, as superintendent, we had people who had still not signed their contract for the coming year into November, December, which is not how the system is supposed to work. And we are now having that all done within, exactly when you want it to happen, exactly the way you want to have that happen. And Cheryl and Allison have made sure that has happened, along with the support from the principals. We've mostly at central office focused on the budget revote. And the couple of other things I have to share with you, Governor Scott announced the appointment of Zoe Saunders as the Secretary of Education. I've said this in a couple of the other meetings. She's got a bachelor's from Harvard, a master's of education from Vanderbilt. She's worked as a fundraiser for healthcare organizations, then for a national charter school network, then as the chief education officer in Florida, Fort Lauderdale. You can find information about her on the Vermont School Board Association website. Members of the VSBA, VSA, and VPA were hoping for somebody with significant public school experience, which she does not appear to have, which doesn't mean she will not be able to do her job, but that is something that is a concern. So on the VSBA website, there's information about that. You can see her resume, and there are links to be able to talk to your representatives if you want to tell them what your opinion about having a Secretary of Education with limited public education experience might be. So you can find all about whether you're a member of the Vermont School Board Association or not. That information is there. That appointment is still to be approved The Senate has to approve it. I'm not sure when that is happening. I think at some point either next week or the week after. She has been doing last Monday and this coming Monday meetings with superintendents to answer questions. I will be in that meeting on Monday and see how that goes. I think we mentioned already with about the yield bill. The House Ways and Means Committee and the House Education Committee have been meeting to talk about about how to deal with the education spending statewide. As I said, I was in a meeting today with superintendents and legislators who are, and school board chairs who are beside themselves about trying to figure out how to manage a situation in which people come, say we support the school, but we're not going to vote for the budget. So there's information about that available online as well. And then the last thing I will share with you is there is a new board member academy, which whether you are a brand new board member or a relatively recent member, you might want to attend. That is happening through the VSBA. That is through Zoom on May 6th and May 15th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Zoom, and you can register for that on the VSBA website. That's what I have for you review. Questions?
Are you able to tell us how many parents have responded thus far?
In terms of what we looked at, it's probably around 20 to 30%. Is that about right? From what we saw? Yeah.
30.
Hopefully we'll get a few more. And that is not unusual. I wish I could say it was, but in all the places I've worked, in big districts, small districts, wealthy districts, poor districts, and what I hear from others is that most of the time, in terms of surveys going out, that you wind up with somewhere around 20% of your population. Similar to our voting percentages. So.
Any other questions for Lauren? Moving on, principal reports. Are we doing the SIP?
We're doing the SIP. No, we've got that under old business.
So we're just going to skip it over? Okay. All right. TRSU Facilities Director report.
Caught me off guard.
I have more time.
Okay, I'll touch on a couple things first before we get going. The sixth graders are doing great. I went out and spent some time with them, and it's kind of fun to see. There's definitely a size difference. I forgot how big the size difference it was, but they're fitting in really good, and our coaches are doing a great job with them. As a whole, your schools are doing okay. At Cavendish, we're working on some information for a new camera system there. Years ago, the facility supervisor installed a camera system that was Walmart quality, I'll say. It worked for what it was, and now that we need some upgrades to it, the hard drive won't handle the new upgrade, so it's at its max, so we're looking at upgrading that. We may wait until next year and probably enlist some Visbit safety money for that. I think we've used our allocated funds for that. We have that appropriated so far on some different projects. We're gonna get the slide moved. I've been working with Jen on that. That's closed right now. If anybody's been to Cavendish, the playground's great, but Visbit would not give it sealed approval for that, so we're working with local contractor. He's gonna move it for very little amount of money. I did call our contact with Visbit, and she's gonna come and make sure that it will work this time before they put it together and they decide that it's not gonna work in the other place. I've been telling you that once the budget passes, we will get a bid document together and we will send that out to the Vermont bid website for the paying of the school once the budget passes. Cheryl and I talked the other day, there's some budgetary issues with heating, with maintenance there, because we've had some not significant heating issues, but some costly issues with some pumps, and we put some of that off. Talked to Anthony the other day, he's got 2 more pumps that are down right now, so we're gonna wait till after July 1st, so he doesn't go over even more right now. Chester Andover, Cheryl and I have been in contact, I think, since the last time we met here, at least once, but maybe twice with our liaisons with FEMA. We should know this summer, I think, what or how much money we're gonna get with conjunction with the White House being flooded out. This is a very long, drawn-out process. We've got a couple of estimates, not for us, for FEMA. We have to do this for FEMA in order to get some money. So we've been getting estimates that has nothing to do with taxpayers or our school boards. Keith and I have been talking, we're gonna try to extend the parking lot by roughly 40 feet. No blacktop, we're gonna kind of get it leveled out and put some stone to alleviate the problems with the buses turning. We haven't had a tail swing this year, but we have every other year where buses hit a car parked because it's so tight there. So we're gonna try to extend the parking lot there by 40 feet. Keith is also looking at upgrading some cameras where his hard drive, the way the hard drives work with camera systems is they meet their max. You can only plug so many cameras into it. His have met his max, so we're gonna work on upgrading the camera system there as well. As I told you, the last meeting, we had a fire marshal's report that hadn't been done in 12 years. Chester Andover's and Cavendish's are just about done. Chester Andover needs an Anselm system in their hood, and we're gonna get that one done and the one at Green Mountain done with our Visitor Safety Grant money, all of it except for $2,000. You allocated that money somewhere else, so we're gonna pick up the difference between the 2 maintenance budgets, and those 2 things are gonna get done. I believe it's June 26th. We have that scheduled to get that done. And the fire marshal was okay with that date. They want a lot of that stuff taken care of within 30 days, and we got back a hold of them, and they were okay with that. All right, GM. We went through another round of indoor air quality testing. The initial report says they're coming back good, which I was very worried because our filters are at their end of useful life. We do have all the new filters here. They're going to change those in May, so we'll have a new set of filters. We're hoping that things will go along. I'm more than confident that the numbers will continue to decrease because now we're going to start opening windows, putting fans back in the windows and blowing air out the way we started in the fall. So everything held its own for the most part. So the filters did their job. That's also funded through the state. I'm still waiting. I was hoping to get it before tonight so I can report that to you, but we have not heard back from Harper yet on our corrective action plan. So they did the core testing. They're waiting on that. They've had some engineers here looking at the windows. This is going to get very complicated. It's going to get very complicated for you guys, the board, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. And there's a lot of ifs, but I need you guys we need to start thinking about this now. If it comes to the point where the state has decided that the windows, we already know the caulking is a high tested area, it's a hot area for PCBs. The core sampling, their initial results looks like there's some problems in the cores, couple of inches. Concerning, but not as bad as Burlington where they're talking a couple of feet where they're removing whole walls. We're not at that point, couple of inches. So the engineer that was here talked about cutting some channels. I don't want to bore you with all that. So they would replace the windows, but we still don't know how much the state's going to give us for funding. We don't know that yet. The corrective action plan is going to come. It's going to get sent to the DEC. The DEC is going to tell us what they will do. The state's going to have to decide how much money they're going to allocate to our school. So it's a long process. Here's what I'm asking you to start thinking about. If it comes to the point where we're going to change the windows, once you change the windows and we leave the old unit ventilators in those classrooms, if after I'm gone, some of you people are gone, some of you younger people are still here, within the next 10 years, and you want to change those unit ventilators, you're going to take those brand new windows out and throw them away because they're direct vented and they're part of that window system. Now, if you start doing that, if let's say you decided you want to, look, we're going to try to change those unit ventilators, we're going to do something with the HVAC system, and you start getting into the ceilings, that's the time you'd want to do a lighting project, right? Because it's all in this, you've already ripped the ceilings apart. So my suggestion is that we start thinking, if the windows have to be changed, what do we do with the heating system at that point? Do we start talking about, whenever this comes about, whether we start considering changing the heating system, doing a heat upgrade and a lighting upgrade? So I think that's something we need to think about now. Because it's going to be, in the near future, I'm going to come to you and say, this is what the state said. This is how much money, and I've been asking them from day one, if they tell us we will give you X amount of dollars, can you just give us X amount of dollars? We'll get your project done, but we want to incorporate it into a bigger project. And the answer has been yes, but I'm not going to say that that's not going to change because their funding formula is messed up as a CLA. It's just the way, I'm sorry to say that, but, and I've been dealing with these guys now forever, and we still haven't heard anything from Monsanto. Again, every time we do indoor air quality, there's anywhere from 1 to 5 attorneys from Monsanto here. So this has been a huge project.
One quick question on that.
Yeah.
Will there be time limitations on spending the money that the state does provide, or could you say, all right, we want to roll it into this bigger project, but to do 5 years from now, not this year?
So, go ahead.
You're probably going to say it. The time constraints won't be about how long, like Esser, that you must spend the money by X amount of time. The time constraints will be from the federal side, not the state side, about once a problem has been identified and you've said you are fixing it, there is a discrete limit, which I believe at the moment says 4 to 5 years, by which point you must have finished whatever you're doing. And so it's not that the state will say you can't keep the money for as long as you like. It's that we will have to have finished it, otherwise we'll have another problem.
And finished it by the time limit from identification of the problem, or
Those are
identification
great
of the
questions,
solution?
Lisa.
Okay.
But, make no mistake, we could put this on an agenda and talk about this in a lot of depth because there's a bunch of options, right? We could just let them pay for whatever they're gonna pay for. It may not cover the whole cost. We may be on the hook for it anyways, and we may not have a choice. Or we could talk about a bunch of different options. Obviously, the more options you talk about, the more money we're gonna spend. So, but there are options, and I can go into that at a different time. I wanted to reach this subject with you now so everybody isn't surprised when we come in the near future, and these are conversations that we have to have more in-depth and more definitive where we need an answer. So maybe the facilities committee can reconvene and start talking about these and make, have some ideas for the full board when we come back. So moving on with that, from not great news to worse news. So the fire marshal report here at the high school, there was one done 12 years ago. There was a plan submitted to the state to alleviate problems with their fire doors and smoke doors. And it didn't get done. It never got done. And 12 years later, the new report comes out and lo and behold, it's almost identical to the first report plus some. So we started looking because they wanted this done within 30 days. After talking to the fire marshal, this is just not going to happen in 30 days. It just isn't. This is a huge project. We've been doing a lot of work with this. We need new fire doors. We need new hardware on our smoke doors. We need to upgrade to our fire alarm system. And again, these are all things, the windows, the heating system, the fire doors are all things that went down with our failed bond. And this was, part of it, but this is stuff that, this is why we're putting money into capital improvement for these projects. Unfortunately, with life services, this is going to be one of those things when I come to you, this is going to be, yes, just tell us how much you need out of capital improvement because it's fire marshal. This isn't me coming saying I'd like to do this. This is, you have no choice. So we've been listed, back to our bond, Banwell Architect, who did all the blueprint drawings for everything with the bond, had all the blueprinted information for our fire doors. They're gonna charge us very little money. Talked to her the other day. Ingrid at Banwell, and they're gonna get together with, one of the contractors that was interested and go over everything and meet with the fire marshal again to put together our bid documents. And they'll go, I think we're gonna talk about the bid process at, another item on the agenda. We'll get those to Cheryl, and it'll go to the state. Talking with some people, we'll be lucky if we get one contractor to bid on it, especially for this summer. It is possible to get it done this summer, but we're gonna be lucky. I think it's gonna be a local one, fairly local. I think it's gonna be somebody out of Brattleboro. But I don't know that for sure. I mean, that's why you go out to bid. The fire alarm, I've talked to 2 different companies. Unfortunately, it's not comparing apples to apples because the company that we use here could upgrade the fire alarm for a lot less money than a company that's gonna come in and put their own system in, because they're gonna gut the system that's here and put their own system in. So it's not really apples to apples. Again, that's gonna go out to bid because of updated, life safety services. We now need 23 more smoke detectors. We need sound and phone upgrades in some classrooms that haven't had them.
Did I just hear you say you need to upgrade your fire system for
Yep.
for
For the fire marshals.
Green Mountain?
Yep. I won't tell you how much money I think it's gonna be. It's gonna be a lot, that's about all I'm gonna say. And we'll wait and see. I'm confident that the money we have in capital improvement will cover it, but it's gonna take a chunk out of it. And this is something that, and no disrespect to anybody else, but this should have been addressed 12 years ago. And now it's on us. And unfortunately, I wish this was one of these things where I can come to you and say, hey, I got this great idea, I'd like to do this, and could you give me this money, or give us this money so we can do this project? This isn't one of those.
So the 30-day timeline isn't feasible. It makes a lot of sense to me. Is there a different timeline that you're shooting for or that's required?
So the fire marshal, from talking to 3 of them, one started, had to, because of a conflict of interest, turned it over to another, and then we have the regional fire marshal here. They will be flexible, but not, they won't give us a lot of leeway. If they think we're dragging our feet, they're gonna start fining us.
Yep. Oh, makes sense.
I'm not gonna say they won't shut us down. They've shut Springfield down in the past for 1 or 2 days. Went in and just said, nope, if you're not gonna get this done, you're not gonna show you're making an effort at it, school's closed. We don't wanna go that direction. He's been fairly okay with me, but I mean, he's a little upset. He was the one that did, the regional fire marshal's the one that did the report 12 years ago, and now is walking in and seeing nothing got done. So he's not real happy. So just another heads up that I'll be standing here in the very near future saying, we need X amount of dollars at capital improvement. Last thing, back to, I want to give a little shout out to Kate, Miss Leith, our assistant principal here. I told you we went to an emergency management seminar, learned a lot. We've been bringing that information to our principals. Kate met with the principals again today. Kate and I met with the TRSU principals, with the new superintendent, last month. Things went really well. We see these things where it's a peak in security, then it kind of drifts off. That's not happening with us. We've moved forward and we're trying to hold the line and bring our emergency operation procedures up to date. Kate and I met with the 3 services here in Chester, and we plan on meeting with Joey and with Cavendish representatives as well, and move our EOPs for Green Mountain Unified into the future. Some of them are real close, some of them need a little bit of work, but we're gonna work on that. That's all good. That's enough for me. Top on. Any questions? Scott?
A couple months ago, 3 months ago maybe, you brought something about Scott Renfro retiring.
Yeah.
I'm curious if where that's gone, what we're gonna do, are we gonna do anything?
It hadn't been official, is it? Okay, so my suggestion, I mean, we couldn't bring it up then. My suggestion is, I think everybody here probably knows Scott, been here for 30 years.
School here.
Went to school here, went to school Chester Andover, grew up across the river.
It's here.
Done a lot, referee, umpire, I could go on and on about Scott. I'm a little bit prejudiced because he's one of my best friends here. We're planning some retirement parties and I want to speak at both of them because I like Scott. My suggestion is I would like to see us put his name on the court. Anytime you come into school, you can find him somewhere close to that gymnasium, whether it's working or coaching or doing something, and I like it to say Scott Renfro Court on it. Not gymnasium, but the floor, Scott Renfro Court. And I think that needs to be a board decision, not mine.
Personally, I love that idea too. I think that's great.
Could I make a motion? Sure. Make a motion, put his name on the court. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Any other questions?
We're just gonna say, are we gonna have any discussion?
Okay, all right, any discussion?
The only thing I would say is that there are a lot of people who have dedicated a lot of time to working in our schools, and I think we should have a consistent way of making decisions like that. I don't know who Mr. Renfro is, so I imagine he's wonderful, but I'm sure there are other people that might say, why isn't my name on the court? And I just feel a little apprehensive about making that decision without having a consistent process. That's just my only point.
Do we take the whole back into discussion?
Sure. I make the motion that we put Scott Renfro's name on the court.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I guess I have to say no, and it's no offense to Mr. Renfro. It's just, I feel like we should have a process for making this decision so it's to be fair and equitable to all staff who have dedicated their careers here.
You need to do a roll call.
Do you want to do that, Amber?
Sure.
Okay.
Rick,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Kate,
No.
Casey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Lois,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tuck,
Yes.
Tom.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll be on that this summer. It won't be right off, but when we redo we put a total tax on the floor. We'll have it done that way.
When's his
Not sure.
retirement party?
June 6th. We're trying to get everybody checks twice. And then we're gonna we're working on doing something here at school with the kids for about 15 minutes at the end of the school day, and then we'll have something for adults, right down here in Rocky. Yep. Any other questions?
I had actually wanted
Yep.
to ask when the facilities committee meets, would it be possible for the fire marshal's report to be available?
Yep. I can do that. Yep.
Should we schedule a meeting?
We're gonna talk about that stuff.
Okay.
Yep,
That'd be great.
all right.
Good.
Any
Thanks,
more?
Todd.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, next up, financial update.
I have, can I say something?
Go ahead.
I have somebody waiting in Zoom that's trying to get into Zoom. That's just
We've
me.
got nobody here.
There is, if they're trying to get to the Facebook link, that is broken, so they need to go to the consolidated calendar on the TRSU.org.
Okay,
So just have to go for that one.
I'll let them know. Thank you.
Okay. In the folder, you'll find the March's financial report, the reserve, scholarship, and student activity quarter reports, and a not budgeted and over budget report. We've spent 66.87% of the budget as of March 31st. That's slightly under the 75% that we would anticipate for around this time of year. With the teacher's summer pay being one of the larger expenses in June, our being under 75% right now is a good thing. Over budget, not budgeted. Cheryl has added a notable section so that you can see things that don't fit into the categories. such as a large increase to the interest, and our tuition revenue is less due to roughly 10 fewer students than we budgeted for. In food service, we normally budget this as a deficit, meaning the general fund supports a portion of the program. This year, we budgeted a deficit of $82,039, and we're currently at $148,204. We've spoken with Andy, and he is going to make a plan to get the cost under control and see why we are here, because that expense is not tracking with the information he has. And then the remaining information here is those specific details that are in your folder. Your questions about any of that? Nicely done, Sharon.
Okay, then we're into committee reports and assignments.
Okay, so RBTC is still above, I think we're 9 students above where we were last year at this time. We vote, all of the contracts are being put out for renewal. We didn't have to subtract any teachers for next year. There are still a couple of positions that they're looking for people to fill. And other than that, everything else is good.
Okay, so the TRSU board met on the 23rd, and that was a special meeting just about the budget. A couple of our members were there. And at that meeting, we approved a TRSU budget of $897,278, sorry, which then was assessed into the 2 different budgets. And then on 4/4, TRSU met by Zoom due to the weather. That meeting, we decided to hold off on discussing the goals, which I don't know if you guys are interested in. I can tell you what they are, but we put them off a little bit just because it would have been an awkward discussion on Zoom. We had a brief budget update because everything at that point, we're just waiting for the meetings to occur. We had another SIP presentation, which was actually spurred on some pretty robust conversation. It was great. We hired a literacy reading interventionist for Linda Holly. There were 2 first reads of policies, which are on our current agenda today. We did further board reorganization. And then we had an executive session, which resulted in the approval of a 4.75 increase for salaries for the non-bargaining employees, and that the TRSU will no longer offer annuities for TRSU non-bargaining employees. And then our next meeting is the 2nd of May at CTES. Is that for TRSU? Transportation meeting. And then restructuring, we haven't had a meeting since the last one, since our last meeting. Our next restructuring meeting has been rescheduled to the 30th of April at 6 p.m. and that's going to be at Cavendish. All right, and then I think each of you have a little handout for committee assignments. On the agenda, you'll notice I pulled everybody's names out because a lot of stuff wasn't accurate. So I just wanted to go through some stuff, and then I also just wanted to revisit just some kind of expectations and not expectations, the wrong word, just some goals we should be meeting as a board in regards to our committees. And then I need to get a couple more members on a few of these, and I have a few additional questions. So I'm not going to read it to you, but I just kind of listed out our standing committees, which are the ones that are just year-round. I added the legislative committee into that one. Huh? It's the first one. So in regards to the facilities committee,
Sorry.
that's all right. In regards to the facilities committee, especially in listening to some of the news Todd just delivered, is anyone else interested in being on that? We just 3 members as of right now.
Sure.
So you're one of them, I think, aren't you? No, no.
I'm also interested, Adrian.
Facilities?
Yep.
Here's 3.
Is there a number you're looking for?
No, but I feel like the more involved, because the facilities is going to be, heavily involved in decision making. Yeah, so there's a lot. So I mean, I think traditionally it has it had been an all board. Or didn't Joe have it as an all board at one point?
Facilities,
No.
finance, facilities,
Okay.
I mean, based on the report, it sounds like we have a lot coming down the road. So I'm interested, I just trying to understand the commitments of all the committees, make sure I'm not overcommitting.
Okay.
So I'm not an absentee committee member.
everybody can attend
I
every
appreciate
meeting,
that.
right? So you can all attend every meeting. Saying that you're on the committee means then you've got a different
It
number
changes the quorum.
that changes the quorum. So you want to be sure you can commit to it.
So we can, I guess, come back after we've gone through this and you can decide. Okay. And then transportation, we have 3. I'm hoping that when the transportation committee does meet, I'd like you guys to include Todd Pratt and Sue Willis. But it's not Todd. It wouldn't be a requirement for you guys to be there. But I think it would be good. Community outreach. I have Tuck. Kate, were you gonna stay on that committee?
I was hoping not to. That's not really my forte.
That's fine. The meeting minutes didn't say anybody other than Tuck.
I had meant to email you, but then I completely forgot. I apologize.
That's fine. Okay, so I'd like at least 3. And the reason being is I think that we're going to need more than one administrator on platforms so that more than one person is able to watch the platforms. Is anybody, I think Katie Murphy was interested. Is anybody else interested at all? We can talk about it. Just keep it in mind because I think it's going to be really important as we move forward being, more transparent and really getting the board's work out to the community so they're more informed when we come up against difficult issues.
Yeah, I think I've heard from a couple different people in the community, like, we haven't seen anything about this new budget, that's a very complex and specific. I was going to shout at you, Lord. I'm just saying what I've heard, and
Heart rate goes through the roof.
yeah, no. I'm not. I didn't want to stir the pot, but this is what I'm talking about. The connection there, I think, is really important.
Completely
Sorry,
valid.
wasn't trying to ruffle any
It's
feathers.
completely valid.
All right, good.
So I'm going to kind of just loosely put in Katie Murphy because I think she had still expressed some interest, but that's only 2 people, so just be mindful of that. I had also brought up the legislative committee, and we're going to go over the goals in a minute. I had Steve, you wanted to be on that. I'm on it. There had been some discussion about someone from every town.
Can I ask what?
Yeah, so it is listed in the back. We can go over each one of them. I gave myself a short copy. I hope everyone's got the last page.
Yeah.
This would likely be most active during the legislative sessions, right? I mean, obviously.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we've already went over the crossover week and I mean, so we're coming kind of towards the end of the session, but it will pick up again. And I don't know if you watch legislation, but there is a lot of education bills being discussed. So a lot.
This is a committee I have interest in because the biggest pain points we've been going over are legislative. And if we're not in the legislators' ears, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll just pencil you in for that one.
Yeah, I have no problem barking at legislators, politely speaking to legislators.
You get me in there?
Yes, and you.
This legislative committee should probably sooner rather than later given confirmation here.
We certainly can. And once we get through this, I just wanted to make sure I knew who actually wanted to be on all these. Then we'll go through them all, and I'm happy to start setting dates. Yeah, great. Okay, so I have Steve, myself, Scott, and Casey on that one for now. Then below, I have the select or ad hoc committees, which are the ones that are they only meet as needed or for time limited issues. So right now, I have the restructuring committee, the staff support staff bargaining, and teacher bargaining. Wasn't there a food service one that we had to meet occasionally? Okay, so I'll put that on the list. Are there any others that I'm not thinking of?
Probably. I don't remember. The food service one is the one I know that we have had and then not had.
But that again, I think it meets like once a year. So, so for restructuring, that's an all board committee. And then support staff, I have Rick and Katie Murphy, and teacher bargaining, Lois and Lisa.
Yeah.
And then you'll notice the numbers, I'll update them out. I have a few names added, but it's the number and then the number needed for a quorum, just so people are mindful of making sure they show up.
Yeah, you gotta meet for the meeting.
Yeah,
Get to the
exactly.
meeting, yeah.
And then we had like the policy committee listed. That's not really our committee, so I kind of took it out of that. So I'm just listing representatives to other boards on that second page. All right, so then I updated the committee charges. And it's not all inclusive. If people want to add or discuss, we can do that at the meetings. But the facilities committee, goal is determining building projects and updates and kind of prioritizing, and then developing the proposals to bring to the board. Transportation committee, again, just kind of identifying the issues that are germane to the board. We're not going to be involved in like the routes or anything like that, but just issues that the board would have say over and bringing those to the board. Community outreach, I kind of put some some guidelines on that. I'm happy to hear suggestions or changes in that if you want any. School restructuring, I updated that charge, so you should all have it. And it's to address the issue of over and underutilizing buildings in the GMUSD. Developing a proposal for the board's consideration on how to best use these assets that's equitable to families within the district and also fiscally responsible. And then once we have actually come to that, then we're going to make that presentation to all stakeholders. And that means everybody, community, students, teachers, taxpayers, everybody. And then I've already shorted myself a sheet. And then the legislative committee. Again, I'm not going to read it all, but it's just going to be so that the members are watching legislative action that is board level. I don't want us focusing on the little stuff that the administration would be enacting. So board level actions. And then the board itself, the entire board, would have to make the decision about whether we're going to go up and offer testimony. So if we decide there's something that we feel strongly that we need to be involved in, the entire board needs to support it, not just those 4 committee members. And then just making sure that I don't want the committee to be utilized for any type of personal, political activism. So even if you feel strongly about something, that committee is really not it. Okay. So is there any discussion or questions or thoughts that you want to have? And if not, we can start setting dates. Okay?
Good.
All right, so when would you guys like to set your first facilities meeting? Oh, I'm sorry, and I don't know if you noticed, I'd like all of the standing committees to meet at least quarterly. 4 times a year at a minimum.
Well, you're awesome.
I am.
So ultimately, what I'd like to start out with, we try to do with the facilities committee is to try to meet briefly, no more than half an hour, 45 minutes, the week before the board meeting, so that we could update and give good insight to the whole board the week before.
Okay.
The 3rd week.
So you want to meet on the 2nd week?
Get insight from Todd, talk to him, freight train coming down the tracks, that kind of stuff.
We can do this over Zoom too, can't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just has to be
set it up with Todd, and we can meet with him to, if there's problems we have to deal with and things that he has to. Yep.
So what date are you talking about?
Don't know. Sorry.
You name it out.
2nd week.
Kate has her hand up.
Kate?
My only ask is that it not be on Thursday. The 2nd week, I have another board commitment with another board.
Yep, I understand.
Thanks.
What's best for you?
Any day but Tuesday.
Any day but Tuesday.
The 2nd Wednesday of the month will not work.
Can we add one in there?
That's a meeting.
If Todd's gonna be involved in this meeting, can we do a transportation at the same time?
Yes.
Basically the same.
Can you
Yes.
do a meeting if there's no issue?
You'd have to do one after the other.
Does that work?
Yeah.
So,
Meeting, we'll have the other.
So change that, Rick. Tuesday will work. I'll make Tuesday work. Can't make a Wednesday work.
Not the 2nd weekend.
Or the 2nd week, right?
And we're talking about, so we're going into May.
6th.
Would be the 7th of May.
Oh, yeah, so, sorry.
So the 7th of May will be the next facilities and transportation meeting.
Transportation,
Can I work with you?
go max an hour.
Yeah.
And you want that to be Zoom only?
I think, yes. Yes.
Fine. I'm good.
I think it actually works
Yeah, you good?
quickly. We'll set up on a brief agenda. We'll talk to Todd and go through what we have to worry about for the next. That's good.
And what time did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I heard the date, but not the time.
Todd, you okay, guys? You all set with 6? Okay. On the 7th of May.
Great, excellent.
I'll ask Kelly to put a draft agenda together.
I'm
So
sorry.
Kelly will put a draft agenda together for you
Yep.
and share it with all of you.
Yep. And then
So
we can
that you
input
can
to it.
then make whatever changes you want to make to it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then Tex, do you feel comfortable reaching out to Katie and just start establishing something, and then maybe prior to the next board meeting, come up with a date?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
I mean, get the ball rolling. I think it would be nice to do them monthly, maybe like a Tuesday following our board meeting. If it's going to be the sort of thing where we get out talking points or like, here's what the board discussed this month. I think it'd be good to have it right after and kind of keep the ideas fresh and going. So that's just my thought, but I'll reach out to Katie and whoever else is interested to for budget.
You know, and we can be, you know, it's not a matter of like we have to wait till something reorganizes. If once it's up and running, someone wants to get on to the committee, we just need to know so that we keep the numbers and the forms accurate. For the legislative committee, when would you guys like to meet next?
For standing through the future Tuesdays are not good for me, but that's.
This can be Zoom too.
Yeah.
It can be. So if you're looking to meet this month, I have availability the 24th, 25th, and 26th, the evening.
Those all work for me.
I can't do the 26th.
Okay.
I think the confirmation hearing for Senators is on
I'm afraid I don't know because there's been
moving parts.
there's been some communication challenges, so I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. I you may be right. I think it is happening next week.
All right. So 24th or 25th work for you guys?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Yep. So preference. Why don't we do the 25th then? Okay, so we will do 25th. 6 o'clock on Zoom.
Adrian, do we want to draft some kind of letter to have the confirmation requirements are appropriate? I know the Vermont School Board and local associations come out and weighed in on confirmation. Is it appropriate or time? It just seems like.
I mean, I think we can. Well, I guess we should discuss that here if you're wanting to do something prior to that. I don't. What is it you're wanting to state? Because I don't know if everyone's going to be on the same page. You know, but you are you can personally also do it. None of this prohibits anybody from stating their own.
Okay.
So if you want to draft a letter,
Okay.
I just don't think you can do it representing.
Just
the
do
board.
it.
Yeah,
That's fine. Did you say 6 o'clock for the meeting?
Zoom only. It's you know,
Do one quick length of time on that.
just 1 hour. All right. We already have dates for the restructuring. Bargaining committees will come as they are set. I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns about this? No? Okay.
Thank you for your quick execution.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm
Very nice.
also good with being a curious policy person.
Don't know, I really don't. It's not really much.
So you're not going to be on the policy committee anymore?
I'd rather not.
Okay. So is there anyone else interested in doing that?
I
would, oh, good.
I think you can have one.
You can, I mean, it is in your best interest to have at least two. But if you want to send more, you certainly can.
You want to?
Remembering that if we have more than a certain number of people, then you have to make sure that enough are attending to have a quorum. I think at the moment we have 4 people on it, that there is only 1 from Ludlow, Mount Holly. We have a community member who is on it, and 2 from, so 4. So you need at least 3 people. Even if you wind up with 5, you would still need 3 people. So it doesn't change a thing to have 2 people on it.
Isn't all the planning and setting just a
They're having the same who wants to be on it and having people look at the floor. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not trying to be mean about it. You're talking about this and realizing that you're putting yourselves into another 4 meetings a month, so it's fine.
And I wonder if that meeting is one that could meet quarterly. Is that something that could be a quarterly longer meeting rather than a monthly shorter meeting?
It's a TRSU meeting.
But yes, it is. And part of why it has met so frequently has been we were doing catch up from the first year or so of COVID when it didn't meet at all. We are at the point now, and Lois will keep me honest, but we're at the point now where all of the backlog of things that hadn't been revised, we're pretty well caught up with it. So that rather than meeting every month, we could meet every 2 or 3.
I guess it's something we could decide at the present meeting whether or not we need to meet the next month, depending on where we are in the policies and depending on what comes down from the state.
And with that, I was hoping that the people that do sit on the policy committee would be willing to also, instead of, just kind of being the conduit, do some education. So watching the VSBA and what, as things come through, if a policy is brought through law, and kind of bringing some education to the board about it. So that people are I'm really hoping that we can kind of level up our game. I really feel like this board needs to just kind of be a little more engaged and a little more effective. So I think that is done for education.
And I believe the next, just so people know, I think the next policy committee meeting is May 13th.
So I now have Lois, Lisa, and Kate. Is that accurate? No, not
No.
Kate.
I was going to go into so that we would have 2, but if we have Lisa and Lois, I think that's good. I don't think we need 3 people. I'm trying to limit there's a lot going on. So I'd rather not, but I would if I'll stop talking.
Understood. Okay, so Lois and Lisa. All right.
And if one of us can't be there, can we ask anybody to be an alternative or no? Okay.
Okay.
The committee could decide that at the beginning of each school year, that if they wanted to have somebody designated as an alternate.
I would be an alternative.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, thoughts? No? Okay. So move on. So the next line item is budget discussion. So I think right now we're kind of saturated with budget information. But with that being said, this is another level up I think that we need to be focusing on this year. So what I'm hoping is we'll get through this next budget, pass, fail, hopefully pass. But if it doesn't, we'll address it then. But I think in this, I want to start talking again, more education so we understand how the budget works. But then I also want the board as a whole to start having the uncomfortable conversations that will inevitably happen at the end of the year, start having them during the year. If we're going to have to make hard cuts that nobody wants to make, we need to make them maybe not in the heat of the moment or just have those things kind of on our mind. Again, as Todd's bringing us information, we're going to know that we've had this massive bill coming down the road, and we know what, if we're staying on top of our budget information, we're gonna know that, we're likely going to be faced with bad things again. And knowing that we may have to make some cuts. And I think if we do this together and as a united group, having those hard conversations isn't going to be as uncomfortable because we will be a united front, a united group. All right, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns, anything they want to add to that? So hopefully the budget will pass, and then next month I will try to come up with some sort of direction to get that started. Public comments.
I don't have it.
Got no hands up.
Okay. All right, new business. All right, so we have 2 first reads. These are the ones that were read at the TRQ meeting. Does anyone have an opportunity to read those? Yes. Any concerns, changes you want to have the policy committee look at? No? Okay, so we will send E1 through, which is fiscal management and general financial accountability, and G11, acceptable, responsible use of electronic resources and internet through for a second read. And then the other new business is discussion about the bid process.
Yes, so Cheryl has a great deal to do. And here are some handouts about it so that you can look at it as well as hear me talk about it, right?
They already have it, okay.
Right, so, and if there are other things that you want to ask questions about, you can get an answer, and you'll hear my melodious voice. Vermont bid law changed in 2021 from a $15,000 threshold to $40,000 to align with the Code of Federal Regulation for micro and small purchase procurement. I know it seems strange to think about 15,000 and 40,000 as micro and small, but there it is. Procurement is a process required for all purchases made with federal dollars. Every purchase made with federal dollars, we have to fill out the form that you are looking at. That's the second page of what we just distributed to you. We have to identify the type of purchase, the vendors we solicited from and who bid, why we picked the bid winner, and check their status with the government's website, sam.gov. This is to be sure that the vendor has not been suspended or debarred. Vermont has its own list as well as the federal government's list when we use state funds. This process is followed for all of our ESSER money, consolidated federal grant, that's the Title I, Title II, Title IV that you hear us talk about, IDB grant, 21st Century grant, which is what funds our after-school program. For the COVID funds, those are the ESSER funds, we were allowed to use the non-competitive procurement method because it was a public emergency on the procurement form, which you would see again in the middle of the beginning of that first page. Annually, we have to do an annual federal procurement threshold self-certification at the supervisory union level to set our threshold for procurement if we want something other than the federal rates. It's always Cheryl's recommendation that we follow the level of the federal level, which we usually are making and you're usually telling us. Our TRSU is going along. As far as general fund and local money, the public bid law, Title 16, Section 559, which is attached here. We use the $40,000 threshold to do public bidding. We use the Vermont Bid Board, local papers, or direct mailings to target vendors based on the bid specs to seek bids. It's always the hope that we will receive at least 3 bids so that we have comparison, competition, so we get the best, fairest rate. We don't always get those 3 bids, but that's what we're looking for. For purchases under $40,000, while we're not required to go out for bid, we usually do encourage getting at least 3 quotes. This is a challenge. When Cheryl does the bid for heating oil, for this last year, she solicited from 11 vendors, and in the past few years, I've only heard back from 1 or 2. The services such as plowing or mowing for Chester Andover, we run an ad in all of our papers of record. These bids for those services have been for a 3-year process. We'll go out to bid again after 3 years, just to be sure we're still getting a competitive bid. And we do frequently wind up with the same people, but going out to bid again means that we're making sure that there isn't somebody coming along saying, I can do it for you guys. Are there questions, or wasn't quite sure what people were looking for with this?
I guess for me, it was more on how you came up with using GI for the bond.
We went out to bid, and we had 2 people who came. And the bid wasn't to. The bid was not to perform anything. The bid was to do the audit and then to put forwards a proposal. And we had 2 companies that answered the bid, EEI and Trade. If memory serves me, it feels like decades ago. It was before COVID. Trade, and they came and they both put forward their proposal for what they would do. Train said they would charge a certain amount of money for doing that entire audit and then making recommendations. And EEI said, as they had done, that they would charge us nothing unless a bond passed. And that their expectation was that that's how it would work, and that is how it has worked. So this board, which consists of only a few of these people, listened to those presentations and accepted the bid from EEI. And then we had delays because of COVID and other things. But that's where that was. And they would have done if things had gone forwards. That doesn't mean that they were going to decide who would do the work. Every subcontracted piece of it was going to go out to bid.
Through their company.
Well, they were going to be putting out bids to meet our requirements. So they would be going forwards to make sure that we were following our statutory requirements for it. So, but they would be following this process for those bids. At least that was my understanding of it. People are nodding, so I assume.
I've said for now. I'll come up with more. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. If you get bids from companies that are based out of state, do you also check, say New Hampshire's list of barred folks, or just the federal ones? So you don't go to the other state.
If it's federal dollars.
Right.
Questions? Moving into old business. Now we're going to have the set presentations.
All right. I don't know who it, Emma, are you putting things up?
I am going to start and so as you know, we came in March to share with you, review the continuous improvement plan, and just to refresh everyone's memory, this is part of a requirement that the state asks of us to submit in order to get federal grant or state federal grant money. So based on our last conversation, we have shared the full SIPs from each of the buildings with you and have created this presentation that will include the theory of action and the goals that have not changed since the last time we presented to you. But what is included and what the principals we're going to be discussing and presenting on tonight are the change ideas. And as part of the continuous improvement plan process, these change ideas are fluid, so they could change over time, but this is just a part of their ideas that they're going to be sharing. Another snapshot I wanted to include was that this was also included in March, was just this is in the education quality standards that the school board is approving, the goals and objectives, which we've included, the strategies, and that is the change ideas that support the goals, as well as that the schools maintain a safe and orderly environment, which the principals are going to be discussing, and
require technical assistance, and at this time, we don't need any technical assistance because we haven't been flagged for that at this point from the state. They just act as coaches, but there isn't any specific technical assistance that's required. So we are going to ask, as part of this, is that for a discussion and action to approve this. We are required to submit it to the state by June 30th. So just so you're aware. Another part of this process that we talked about and have included in this presentation is the baseline data that our goals have been extracted from. In the actual documents that are live on the TRSU website, there is a needs assessment for literacy and math that goes into the extent of the root cause analysis and problem of practice. So we were able to get to the goals. So you can see that some of the data has been suppressed. We use the snapshot guidance from the Vermont AOE for suppressing data, which is student counts less than 11. So you can see that there is the information for ELA and for math. And we will go through now building by building, and they'll present. Overall, we're going to ask for a approval for the school district as a whole and not specific buildings.
Hello. So you saw this last time. This is the theory of improvement. So this is the theories for which their changes that our ideas are based on. So we can, I think, probably blast through that slide. This was our goal that you saw last time for ELA, what we wanted to accomplish. So the crux, oops, I'm sorry, go back real quick. Yeah, thanks. So the crux of this goal is that we want to improve our reading fluency as measured by our MAPS data. And our goal for this was for our primary grades, our kindergartners, our first and our second grades. We discussed this last time too, so I think we can probably go right to the change ideas. Okay. So our first change idea, and we were very intentional about our change ideas. We wanted to make sure these were things that we could manage in our buildings. And ideas that were discreetly connected to our goals. So we had to be very intentional about what these ideas were. So our first change idea is based around implementation in our routines for literacy. Implement a multidisciplinary kindergarten team approach to identifying and intervening early for students with deficits or delays in areas that affect acquisition of key foundational skill regardless of their plan status. So that's the idea of getting in there early when we first get our kids to kindergarten and really figuring out where they're at and be able to address those deficits straight out the gate. We want to take another look at how our data teams function, making sure that our roles are clear with our teachers setting our agenda topics, which would be a bit of a shift. We've had an excellent leadership with regards to our data teams this year, and we're trying to switch that onus to teachers so that they're more fully involved. We're going to provide opportunities for multi-age WIN block. WIN stands for what I need. And so those are opportunities throughout the day for interventions. And we want to look at doing cross grades so that those kids are really being grouped where their levels are as opposed to necessarily where their age is. So they're getting exactly what they need. A commitment to intervention cycles, holding ourselves accountable to those cycles, and then to continue to collect additional data through our EL assessments. Our second change idea for ELA is just looking at tiered instruction. So support teachers in the implementation of consistent expectation and efficient, effective routines for teaching foundational skills at Tier 1, that's at the general ed classroom level, during our 60-minute skills block. That's part of the EL curriculum. We're going to continue to improve our systems of multi-layered support. We're always continuing to improve and shore that up to make sure that we are providing those layers. We're hoping to support our teachers in class with Tier 1 implementation. So again, that's at the general ed instructional level. Continuing to improve our EST process. This is sort of alphabet soup, right? A lot of acronyms. EST is our educational support team, and those are the teams that convene when we flag a student that needs one thing or another, and we come together and make plans for them. And then reevaluating how multi-layered system of supports, our new SPED eligibility process. So special education had a change in the last few years, and we want to make sure that our supports are in place so that should a child get to a place of being where we need to look at having them evaluated for special education, that we have made sure we have done everything underneath that to support that decision. Moving on to math. Woohoo! Okay. So our math goal, you've seen it before. We want to improve our growth measured by at least 20% increase. And we're looking at the upper level grades for this in our building, so grades 3 to 6. Change ideas. First and foremost, targeted instruction. Here we go with the alphabet soup again. ACI is assessment check-ins from EDM is everyday math. That's our math curriculum. So we want to get our assessments into Forefront, which is our new data collection platform. We feel like once we get the data in there, we'll to be able to make better use of that data. IXL is an online program that we use for skills. We want to increase that. OGAP is another math assessment teaching area. And those tasks, we want to connect those with our high leverage teaching concept, which is a district initiative. We want to make sure we do identification of students needing these supports and targeted instruction in those layers. More small group instruction using a workshop model, that's within the classroom at the tier 1 level. And finally, making sure that we're using highly qualified staff for that targeted instruction. Productive math discussions. So what would that look like? So this year we had a really great surge in our data teams, and we got to look at our ELA data with the help of Emma and Beth Ann Drinker, and we were targeting our new curriculum. We want to now add the next layer to that and increase our math data team frequency. We did get that going this year, but not to the extent that we wanted to, so we're going to continue to improve that. We're going to continue our commitment for release time for staff to attend the trainings that they need in these programs, such as OGAP, that will shore up their skills as teachers. And finally, we want to continue to access our University of Chicago Coaching Online. That's for the Everyday Math program. Safe and healthy schools. So our goal centered really around the ruler curriculum, which we want to start implementing with fidelity and marry it with our current system, which is PBIS. So we can skip to the next. And so all our change ideas are honing in on how we're going to implement our ruler curriculum. So we're going to continue to improve pacing with ruler implementation. We will have ruler mood meters displayed throughout the building, so that's all part of the curriculum, and we want to make it more part of our culture, so really make it ever present in our building. Each class will have our mood meters reflected to reflect to throughout the day, and daily use of it during morning meetings and closings at the end of the day. Integrate essential arts into ruler work, so that's our specialist teachers, making sure that they are also part of this system so that it's, again, across the board in our community. We're going to provide professional learning and support for our social and emotional learning, ongoing professional development for staff in ruler, and finally, we're going to attend the best and continue to attend the best conference annually, which happens right after school ends. Right when we think we're finished, we go learn for a week up at Killington at the best conference to make sure that we are consistently revising and revisiting our social and emotional learning plans. And that's it for me.
Any questions for Joy?
Yeah, I just have one question. In the primary reading piece, do you involve speech and language in that as well?
There are speech and language specialists. So there probably would not be involved in tier 1 instruction, but students with plans would be working with the speech and language staff. Although at the kindergarten level, let me revise that a little. At the kindergarten level, they do have some push in with speech and language that's available to all.
Yeah, I would just think that it would be helpful, especially with phonemic awareness and getting those primary concepts.
might be alone here, but could you give me like a quick synopsis of what the ruler curriculum is? I'm new to that idea.
I don't
Even
know.
just the acronym.
I'm not even
You want me-
sure.
I'm
Sure,
sorry.
yeah.
That'd be great.
The acronym stands for Recognize, Understand, Label, Express, Regulate.
Okay.
No, I switched the R's there.
Okay.
Recognize, understand, label, express, yet regulate. It's an approach that was created by the Yale Center for Social and Emotional Learning. And it's a curriculum that all 4 of the elementary schools are in. Well, it's actually not a curriculum, it's an approach to social emotional learning to develop emotional intelligence. And it's in year 1, starts with the staff, and then it's helps support students in 5 tools that support them in growth in those certain areas. All 4 elementary schools are in different phases of rolling it out. And I know the high school will talk a little bit more about that piece too. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm sure it's been talked about a lot, but I appreciate it.
Every one of the elementary schools sent a team to do a training for it. Most of them did it in a time frame where they were doing that, not in person, but on Zoom.
Okay.
And the training comes along with an additional several years of online support for that implementation.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Is that next?
Yes.
Hi everyone, Dillman, Cavendish Town Elementary School. This is our theory of improvement. We've gone over this before, but really good along with the district participate learning as far as K through 2 literacy and for mathematics. So that's our theory for improvement. And our change ideas is we want students, 80% of our students grades 3 through 6 demonstrate proficiency according to the ELA VT CAP assessment. And 70% of our K through 3 students will score at or above proficiency on oral reading, fluency, portion of the DIBELS assessment, which is new this year. And some other ideas. We want to continue doing the Haggerty program, which we started this year. We want to do it with fidelity in grades K through 3, and really look at how we're presenting that curriculum and making sure we're doing it accurately. So we're really going to spend a lot of time looking at Haggerty to supplement our foundations program in the coming year. Also, we continue to look at available data through NWEA, DIBELS, and PASS, and look at teacher-created assessments and so forth during our data team meetings. And implementing foundations will continue. And then also the MLSS process, we're fine-tuning that every week, we're fine-tuning that process and making sure that we're giving kids what they need in that process, continuing to implement that and fine-tune it along the way. And also using Lexia, especially a lot of our upper grades are going to be using Lexia this year, looking how we can use it in the lower grades as a tier 2 intervention. And in K through 6, looking at doing some text-based writing pieces quarterly to analyze student writing during data meetings as well. And for math, our goal is by 2026, 75% of our CTS students in grades 3 and 4 will demonstrate proficiency in math and the VTCAT. The reason it's just 3 and 4 is grade 5 and 6 have not that threshold, so we want to get 3 and 4 there as well. Change ideas, classroom instruction will increase opportunities to engage in math discourse. Our students will be talking more in mathematics and talking about strategies in which students are doing that in class. We want to use ACIs, which are the daily assessments in everyday math, to document student proficiency in various standards each day. So I think I skipped a slide. Okay. Zoom up. Okay. Our focus, so we will have a focus standard on operations and algebraic thinking. Basically, we looked at all of our data K through 6. This was a standard that was weak in grades K all the way through grade 6. So we're going to do a deep dive into looking at how operations and algebraic thinking, how we're teaching it, how it's presented to kids, and assessments, and looking at how we can improve our students' performance in that standard. So other ideas for math, looking at student work, error analysis, and really focusing on teaching math vocabulary such as quotient, and social intelligence. Product, trapezoid, parameter, these are definitely math language or math vocabulary. The kids have to understand those vocabulary words. So focusing on that and also on math language such as altogether, how many more, and so forth. In safe and healthy schools, excuse me, we'll be focusing on using ruler as well, that implementation. And also, the educational support team is going to support on its student attendance and on-time arrival at each grade level. And as far as social emotional learning, the ruler implementation, some of the strategies, we use the mood meter. We want our students to be able to identify their mood, whether they're red, yellow, green, on a mood meter, and say why they're feeling that way. That's going to be a goal before the end of next year. And just really developing emotional regulation strategies in general. We're also going to pilot the use of a break box in 2 classrooms to see how that works, where kids can actually say, I need a break, and they go to a break box, and there's activities for them to do or something for them to do to get their mind off their current emotion after they're in the red and return. It's kind of like a rest and return, or, take a break, come back to the and join the class. There's going to be a break box. We're going to introduce that and pilot that in 2 classrooms. And then we're still going to continue our responsive classroom practices that we've had at Cavendish Town, which the teachers are very good at responsive classroom. They've used it for years, and it definitely is a highly effective strategy. But so the school is definitely going to complement and support the emotional regulation aspects of what we're already doing. And also, I put in here that the leadership team is going to develop some look-fors so we can monitor it. So once we get everything up and running, we'll do walkthroughs to see how we're doing as far as implementation with ruler to make sure that it's taking place in the classrooms. As far as attendance, we really want to really fine-tune we have a policy in place, but we want to really making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable and following it and making sure that we're tracking student attendance, especially in kindergarten. Since kindergarten is not mandatory, we've had a lot of our students this year missing kindergarten, they're missing really critical pre-reading skills. So we really want to really tighten up our policy with attendance in general, making sure that we're trying to encourage parents to get their kids to school one time, not only and there every day. We have some students who have missed over 40, 50, 60 days of school in kindergarten. If you miss that many days, there's no way you can actually progress in the curriculum if you're not there. So that's something we're going to work on, even though it's not mandatory. We're going to try to find ways to really get kids to be there every single day. That's important. That's pretty much our goals for next year. Any questions about that? I'm a little shocked that, I'm sorry, the kindergarten, I'm coming from Maryland, DC, and Virginia where it's mandatory, so coming to a state where it's not mandatory is kind of shocking to me, so it's kind of like amazed, I'm just kind of amazed that kindergarten's not mandatory, but that's just me.
I have several questions. I don't know, Adrian, if you want me to wait until we're all done or ask them now.
Is it for Dale? Or just
I have questions for Joey, I have questions for Dale, and I think I'm going to have questions for Mr. Broadley as well. But
maybe wait until the end.
Okay.
Well, after I'll Dale. Any other questions for Dale? All right.
Okay. So as we looked at before, our theory of improvement is what we sort of term as like a satellite view of what we want to achieve. Our 2 academic proficiencies of ELA and math, the main focuses are going to be around data to inform instruction, planning, and student learning. Our safe and healthy schools, we want to implement a universal screener and begin the process of having our middle and high school folks trained in ruler. Ms. Leith has organized this year. I think it's in May, correct me if I'm wrong, but in May, we're going to take a group to be trained. And the way the process of ruler works, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm new to this too, is you have your beginning, your first step, and you can call it first year, is to train a number of staff. The second step or second year is to train others within the building from that staff. And then the third part is to implement the strategies that ruler provides, which is a lot of it is understanding values of students' emotions, building the skills of emotional intelligence, and creating and maintaining positive school climates. That's kind of an overview of what we're looking to achieve. Our other sort of goal of, or our theory is, still no. Okay. Our other theory around ruler is we look at how our elementary schools, our sending schools are beginning, and they're well into it now. And as we get further into ourselves, as kids move through the terrain, we're going to be using the same language, and because it's going to make it less difficult for them to understand what we're talking about. It's going to make it easier for them to understand how we're understanding them. So hopefully it'll, in the next 3 years or so, it'll be a smooth, systematic approach to looking at our district-wide social and emotional and physical outcomes for students. Okay, our ELA goal is by June 2026. Now, bearing in mind that the SIP is a 26-month view for now, is the way that the state set it out. It is based over the next kind of 2 to 2.5 years as an end result. And we may do better, we may not quite reach it, but it's kind of as was said earlier, it is very fluid. So there is room to look and see what we're doing. If something's not working, change it. If something is working well, continue to work with it. But our goal is that we believe, looking at the prior data as well, that students in grades 7, 8, and 9 can achieve 70% proficiency in ELA by the state measurement of the Montcalm scores. Our kind of in-between goals, or goals related to our major goal, is 2 areas looking at snapshot. We want to improve the free and reduced lunch status, improve for students with free and reduced lunch status, although with universal meals now, it makes it very difficult to actually identify because everyone gets fed. But to reduce the performance gap by 10%. So, meaning that students that aren't and students that are, and how do we get them closer and all together moving up. And also to improve students from marginalized groups, which may include students with disabilities, 504 IEPs, social and emotional recognition, other disabilities, to help close their gap, performance gap, by 10%. So, change idea. The change idea, first, number 1, want to implement intervention and regular department team meeting. Implementation and routines for literacy. We want to implement intervention and regular department team meetings to focus on instruction, review student data, and confirm effectiveness of the current intervention instruction, and determine decisions, strategies to move students in and out of their tiers of instruction. Include special educators in the process for universal services for all. So how are we going to do, or how will we know if we're doing this? Improve student achievement in literacy, as evidenced by the assessment of the VTCAP and IXL. And I'm sure many of our parents have expressed to you that their students are going home saying, oh, we're doing this IXL in math and English every week now. Awesome, because that is giving us good data, and it's also supporting some instruction within both those academics. And documentation of the use of tools and protocols, data review meetings. Again, we're looking to use our resources as well as we can, as full as we can, developing not just departments, but data teams within the high school and middle school that are going to look at data about teaching and learning. Documented tier system of literacy instruction outlined in you've heard this earlier, our supervisory union, multi-level system of supports, implementation manual, document master schedule plans, which will consistent tier 1 instructional blocks aligned with staff and resources. And as Joey had mentioned earlier, the tier 1 is more about universal instruction. What are we doing in the classrooms? How are we reviewing what we're doing and supporting students at that very first level. Teachers will demonstrate an increased knowledge of data-based instruction and tier instruction, implementation to meet all students' needs, documented in meeting minutes and TRSU digital tool usage reports, and namely Forefront. Again, you've heard Forefront mentioned. We're using that as a tool to gather the state. Change idea number 2, tiered instruction. Develop tools and structures for supporting administrators and literacy leaders as they implement scientifically based practices for literacy within the tier model of instruction. Scheduling being an important part of it. Participate in data-based decision-making and identify all staff available to support literacy instruction. So again, that's going back to how do we utilize our resources to the maximum. How we know the change result in improvement, improved student achievement and literacy as evidenced by the assessment results of UTCAP and IXL assessments. Documentation of the use of tools and protocols at data review meetings to decide on the next steps for instruction, monitored through meeting minutes, documented tier system of literacy instruction outlined in the school MTSS process, documented master schedule plans with consistent tier 1 instructional blocks aligned with staff and resources, including special education students and educators. TRSU targeted walkthrough data. Again, our meetings right now, our ATM meetings, we're looking at a lot of strategies that we can look to improve informally as well as formally. Be constantly looking at what we're doing in the classroom and how successful we're being. Teachers will demonstrate an increased knowledge of data-based instruction and tiered instruction, implementation to meet all students' needs, documented in meeting minutes, and TRSU digital tool usage. And change idea 3, high quality staffing. Really, we talked a lot about the data team meetings and use of Forefront, professional development in the use of Forefront. So having a tool that we can use, we want to make sure that we train everybody to the max so they understand how to use it and what they're getting from it. How we know our results of our changes result in improvement, improved student achievement and literacy as evidenced by VTCAP and IXL assessments. Teachers will demonstrate an increased knowledge of database instruction and tiered instruction, implementation to meet all students' needs, documented in meeting minutes, TRSU digital usage reports, and our funding source grants that are funded locally. Okay, area number 2, our math goal and change ideas. By June 2026, 60% of all Green Mountain 7th, 8th, and 9th graders will be proficient in math, as demonstrated by the spring 2026 MONCAP math scores. And I know that maybe sounds very exciting, but I think it could be higher. Really, it should be higher. And again, the 2 sort of sub-goals of improving our free and reduced lunch, students with free and reduced lunch status, to close the performance gap and improve students from marginalized groups to reduce their performance gap too by 10%. We did, in coming up with that figure for math as well, we did look at our current 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. Well, we looked at them all, but we looked at those in particular because that's the students that we're alluding to. And it's definitely achievable. I mean, we have, as you look at the data, hopefully in your packet, without going back to it, with the exception of grade 5, 6 and 7 are 58 and 52%. So with the work that the elementary schools are doing, and then the work that our middle school is doing, I see no reason or no blockages to stop us from our achievements. Change idea 1, mathematic planning. Mathematic educators plan for effective teaching of mathematics by situating clear learning goals within learning progressions, adhering to instructional procedures and pacing recommendations of high quality materials, and analyzing student work to guide instructional decisions. How will we know if this has been effective? Improved student achievement in math, as evidenced by the assessment results, count IXL, documentation of the collaborative lesson planning within the math department. And again, that's just, this is one area that hopefully you have this link to have a look at what collaborative lesson planning looks like. Consistent use of identified evidence-based strategies monitored through curriculum-based formative assessment data captured and analyzed in Forefront. So again, hopefully it all goes together where we're training teachers how to use Forefront well and how data teams will analyze it and improve strategies to continually better their teaching for students. Teachers will demonstrate increased knowledge of data-based instruction and implementation of a layered support to meet all students' needs, documented in meeting minutes and Forefront data reports. And establish the use of tools and protocols to review data through the MTSS or MLSS process to decide on next steps for instructional monitored through meeting minutes and progress monitoring data collected in intervention cycles. And MTSS is just another acronym for MLSS. So it's multi-tiered system support, multi-layered system support. It means the same stuff. Change idea number 2, develop productive math discussions. Mathematic educators schedule regular meetings for mathematically productive discussion to happen that encapsulate student thinking by planning for how students will approach the instructional task, generate common questions to ask that they will promote students' thinking, accessible cues and guidance for students that demonstrate misconceptions, and begin and end lessons in a way that will support and advance student knowledge and understanding. I know that Joey certainly had referenced the OGAP training. Some of our teachers have gone through that OGAP training already as well. So again, it's giving them more knowledge to have better conversations about how and the why behind what we're doing with kids and teaching and learning. How will we know? Documentation of the collaborative lesson planning for each grade course, learning walks that show evidence of using protocols that encourage student talk, anticipation guides that demonstrate prior learning, students actively listening to other students, teachers encouraging student-to-student discussions, and students explaining answers in full. So again, through learning walks, through pop-ins from administration or fellow teachers, we can gather a lot of data to not only say, okay, this is what we're going to do, but this is how we're doing it as well. So, change idea 3, again, high quality staffing, around professional development and use of Forefront to analyze assessment data, and professional development in the use of IXL as a continually used tool for assessment and the benchmark data. And Emma and Julie have done a great job in certainly several months ago, or at the beginning of the year, working with our math department, and Julie continues to meet with our math department on a regular basis throughout the year and discuss all data points, how IXL is best used, all the stuff that we just previously talked about. And we've now moved on to using IXL for ELA instruction, and Julie came in with Emma, and they planned out a session to work with our ELA teachers to give them a launching point. I believe it was 2 or 3 months ago, not 2 months ago maybe. And now we're beginning to gather data in that front. And it's a change for our kids, because I've had a few students, more than a few, say, why are we doing this IXL data weekly? We've gone from, we would take our benchmark measurements at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, at the end of the year, and now we're doing it regularly. I believe it's Tuesdays for high school, Wednesday for middle school. And it's hard to tell a student that, we want to look and see through time where you're at, what you've learned, and what your deficits are, and how can we support you better so that everyone's doing great. And that's basically the way I've explained it to students, and not one has argued back and said, no, that's not great. Why do you want to do that? But again, it's tough. But as it becomes more habitual, I think we'll see a lot of growth, and it'll support a lot of growth. So how will we know? Teachers using data to guide instruction and lesson planning, and teachers will continually use IXL to look at formative assessment to guide lesson planning. Again, funding sources, title, and local funding. And lastly, I know it's taken a while here, but that's just me. So our overall goal was a 10% reduction in student-reported social, emotional, mental, and physical well-being concerns, as indicated on the social emotional wellness survey and snapshot. We are going into this heavily to look at our social and emotional needs of students. We have Jess Kessler, who is working with our Rowland Foundation grant to support, and the team there are doing a load of great work and analysis work, and going to look at other schools and questioning, doing surveys. They're gathering a lot of information so we can develop and better support our students. So our change idea, one was tiered instruction, administration of the snapshot screening survey in March of 2024 to collect universal data on student social, emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Implementation of Ruler 7 and 12, starting with training on the implementation team in May, as I previously spoke about. Staff training in mental health first aid. Some staff have had the training. We have another opportunity coming up through Jess has offered it to any individual that would like to take it. Continued training and implementation of circles through Sweetheart and Heroes. That's another initiative that supports our schools and around the social emotional piece. Continued implementation of best practices related to substances through use of our SAP and Wellness Committee. Trauma-informed courses with Dave Melnick. He's been doing a lot of work with our district and continues to do that. Understanding trauma in school. And how will we know? Teachers who use circles within the classrooms to support a better learning climate. Common terms using Ruler, where both students and teachers will develop a better understanding of social and emotional needs. Teachers will be better equipped to discuss student mental health issues and develop strategies to keep students in the classroom. Change idea 2, tiered instruction, develop a multi-tiered system of support within Green Mountain. Modify the classroom environment to encourage instructional momentum. Look at different platforms to support documentation of MTSS, such as Panorama. Continue work with the school's professional development grants for DIG, driven by partnerships for literacy and learning. That's another area that we've just become involved with. It's a 3-year initiative that is looking at how to develop and grow MLSS or MTSS system within your school. How will we know results have changed? We'll have a systematic approach to support for all students through our MTSS at Green Mountain. Students will increase time in classes and be more successful. More effective core universal instruction that will lead to increased opportunities for student success. And then funding is local funding. Part SOB have already used some of that, and federal funding is for this big grant. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That was a lot. Sorry, I love you today.
Before we get into discussion, we'd actually hit the 8 o'clock hour, so I wanted to ask Jack if you'd like to leave.
Would that be okay?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you.
So, discussion about this. Kate, you said you had questions.
I do. Just a couple. my first question, because I've heard Lauren say this so many times about implementing new programs. How many of these strategies include new this year programs or curriculum? I heard a lot of continue this, continue this, continue this, but is there anything new we're implementing in the upcoming 2 years?
I believe certainly for high school, IXL, though it's been there, it's now being used more fully, and certainly in ELA, when now that is brand new in the last month or two as a form of collecting data. So I definitely would say that a ruler approach. I know when I've only been here this year, but I know that from day one, our superintendent has asked me to get the high school and middle school more involved in ruler, because the younger schools are doing a great job with it, and it does make sense. And finally, we're embarking on that as well. So that's very new for us too. So.
Great. And then I was reading the reports, and in the ruler, it says that the way that you're going to measure that is through a survey tool that you all created. The ruler model doesn't have any tools that you can gauge effectiveness with. Or did we just?
I can actually answer that, because I just had a meeting with the actual ruler organization with a coach there, and they are currently typically, so one of the strategies in place is to actually adopt a new tool to utilize to take a baseline measure in our system. And each of the principals articulated that in one of their change ideas, and then use that as a baseline to measure growth related to that. So I've actually talked to them about different tools that they recommend that they would use to support, but they actually don't have anything embedded in the system right now that they use.
Okay. I have two more questions, if that's okay, Adrian. One, I have to know what a break box is, just for my own sense of peace.
You've heard of rest and return, where kids go and they rest, they go take a break, they'll go rest in a chair and then return back to class when they're ready. Let's say they're having a bad day or something and they just need to have a timeout. It's like a timeout chair. They go out and they take a break from the classroom and then they come back and join the class. But it's within the classroom.
It is not an actual box, though, that somebody gets inside of.
The box will have items in, like a fidget. It may have a coloring page. It may have a breathing activity where they do, birthday breathing, where they breathe 1, 2, 3 deep breaths and then return back in. There's breathing exercise in the box. There's a variety of things within the box they can do to distract them from their current motion and maybe get back into learning. Yes, so it's a box.
Yeah. I have seen people use an actual box, and I got a little paranoid there. Okay, thank you. And then last, I appreciate the optimism that you have, Mr. Broadley, about the goals that you've set, the 70% for ELA and the 60% for math. In looking at the baseline, you've got 14%, 29%, 52% in math, and hoping to get that to 60% in 2 years, and then 31, 55, and 65, and hoping to get that to 70% in ELA. That feels big, and you're confident, you're all confident, you have all the right steps to get there. That feels like that feels big. It's great, I agree, we should have aspirations, but I want to make sure it's realistic.
It's very realistic. Part of, and again, this is the part that is hard to measure. And with Kate and I coming in this year to this building, we spent a lot of this year getting to know people, getting the feel of the building, getting the feel of the kids, getting to know us. But I feel as far as the actual testing, standardized testing, SAT and PSATs, we did fairly well. We could still improve. I've taken notes, and I know Ms. Leith has taken notes too. on all the stuff we control. So the making sure kids did their practice test, making sure that we reminded them that, computers need to be charged, that they need to bring the cables with them just in case, making sure they were well fed in the morning. Middle school certainly had a great approach to beginning the day of having the kids all come in, welcome them, make sure they all had breakfast. They went out for a little walk on all the days that we tested and just got some fresh air, brought them back in, did some testing first half, got a break, went back and did it. So again, the things, I believe the things that we control alone will show improvement. Again, come August, we'll see. But I feel that was part of, that is part of the growth right there, coupled with all the teaching and learning stuff that we're going to work on over the next couple of years, makes it a realistic goal. I just feel it, both of them.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. I just have a couple of questions as well. One is, I can completely understand setting the goal as getting a percentage of kids above a bar. But I'm also just thinking about like this huge range that has a lot to do with the kid and the circumstances the kid is coming from, kind of almost regardless of what the school can do. And I'm just thinking about, what we would really want is for everyone to be shifting up and, to have that support and success at the highest and the most struggling levels at the same time. And at least in terms of the way the goals are stated, it seems like you could reach that same goal by taking the kids who are a little bit below and helping them to get up and ignoring everybody else, right? And I'm sure that's not the intention, and it doesn't look like that's what's there in the change plans either. But I'm wondering if there are ways to address those measurements of what's working that are not just about, the one line, but a more holistic, how are the top and the bottoms doing as well?
When you, I can partly answer that. When you look at our results, and again, I don't want to base our school purely on standardized testing. That's just personal philosophy. I know that a lot of people do. In my mind, it's not the right way to do it because there's a lot more goes into school than just standardized testing. But the that's my train of thought there. Talking too much now. The measurement of each individual student, you can see their growth. So again, if you don't necessarily reach your 60 or 70% by then, or we will have another round of testing next year as well in between, we are going to look at the individual growth as well and report out on that. So again, like say maybe a student who scored a 1 last year got to a 2 this year, or someone who scored a low 2 got a high 2, and you can measure that performance as well. So that will also tell you if you're moving in the right direction by what we're doing, by what we're looking at to support certainly math and English. And then in the social emotional area, it's a little bit harder, but with Snapshot and with Ruler, we're going to continue to develop data that over the next 2 years and 2 months that hopefully will be in a better place. We might not be totally there yet, but we'll at least be supporting our students better and as well as we can.
John, do you mind if I pull on
No,
that thread?
absolutely. I was waiting for you to chime in.
I was agreeing with you. I agree with you, Lisa. And I think where John and I think actually I think that in Chester, Andover too, as Equity One schools, they're looking at the measurement of the students who are historically marginalized and free to reduce lunch, IEP students. So they're looking at those students really strategically and measuring the growth there as to look at how we are achieving that goal. So certainly focusing on that student population is going to affect that percentage more than maybe your higher flyers.
And then the other question is kind of a data question. I'm wondering if it is possible, or if you have looked at the testing, looked at the scores for the students who left the district or began homeschooling, especially in that like shift from 6th to 7th or from 8th to 9th. Like, are the people who are leaving or doing something else other than staying in the district, are their scores in a particular part of this range, or are they just kind of scattered throughout the whole thing?
I mean, I would wager a guess that it probably you wouldn't be able to correlate it to whether or not they were doing homeschooling at one time or a different placement. But what it would be interesting to do is look at those students who are doing homeschooling or a different placement. Do they fall into one of the marginalized categories? And then maybe there's something to glean there. But I don't think we would really look at it in that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it in terms of tracking, the 5th and 6th graders who are doing so well now as they're moving into the junior high and high school. Is there some change in what that population actually is, as opposed to the kind of learning environment that they're in?
I would also say that with the new forefront tool that Julie and I have talked about, and each of the principals have talked about, we'll be able to have a snapshot of a student's profile as it relates to certain data from the time they're enrolled in our system through. So potentially a picture of a K through 12. And I think Julie's on, but she could talk more about it. But that's essentially we'll be able to look at that pretty quickly to have to see the story that is told. Exactly what you just said.
That's great, thank you.
I have a quick question. There's a lot of it on safe and healthy schools. There's talk about social emotional regulation and awareness, and the ruler program you guys are implementing to address that. Is this built into the curriculum? Is this just like overarching theory that you guys implement on a regular basis? Is this classroom time, like with the kids? I'm trying to understand like the totality of what exactly are we talking about.
So the answer is yes to all of that.
Okay.
So it's taught explicitly in the classroom in times of the day, like in morning meetings and advisory time, through our counseling, through our school counselor and her programs. All of this is being taught explicitly, and then all the teachers speak the language and use it during class as part of our culture. So our hope is that as we get better at it, it does become a seamless part of our culture where everyone's speaking the same language and using this, having the same point of reference to all our social emotional needs.
I would say 7 through 12, there won't be as much explicit instruction in ruler, because in theory, all the kids that we're receiving have had that instruction, and also developmentally, it just doesn't quite meet the needs of middle and high schoolers. But again, that idea of having that common language and that common approach, so that if a student is struggling or is trying to express what is going on with them or what they're feeling, students know how to say it and teachers know how to respond when they hear it, and we can help them be successful and stay in the classroom.
Pulling on that thread of what Kate was saying is that in the 7 through 12 approach to it is really they've been taught the emotional vocabulary, and now they're using it really to apply to be able to articulate and problem solve, utilizing all of those really great learning that they've acquired in the K through 6.
All right, I think that we probably need to wrap up discussion and move towards a vote. We still have quite a bit more to get through. Does anybody have any other specific questions in regards to like what we about? We need to be focusing on whether this is reasonable and achievable, not necessarily. Anything based on that? Are we ready to move to a vote? All right. Somebody want to make a motion to accept the SIP program, I think I need a little direction on what you're asking for. Is the program as presented?
The continuous improvement plan as, is that correct, Lauren? Maybe you can help me with that.
And it's to approve it.
Yeah.
To approve the continuous improvement plan as it has been presented.
I move to approve the continuous improvement plan as it was presented.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, it is passed.
Thank you very much.
Excellent job. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Excellent presentation.
Very much.
Okay, I think in, just out of respect for time here, I'm going to assume everyone's read the policies. Okay, so unless anyone has something specifically about a policy to bring forward, I'd like to make a motion to, or have someone make a motion to accept them all. We can read them all in one motion.
I move that we accept the policies that are up for the second read and adapt them.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so G1, G7, E4, E15, E13, E2, and H4 have been accepted. Okay, future agenda items. Is there anything anyone has a burning discussion? Well, no?
The only thing I can think of is, Lauren, I messaged you a couple weeks ago about it, and I put Lois in on an email with Candace as the exchange student. Do we get any money from that, from the state, from the feds? No, nothing.
So do you want that to be on the agenda, or is that just a question you have now?
Let's do it.
So you want to discuss exchange student?
If there's some sort of policy, put a policy in place, or something.
We don't have a policy.
There's no
Okay.
We have practices that we
How many are allowed?
we follow.
I mean, I suggested to Candace that she have a conversation with John because he would be the person to contact.
Yeah. To be honest,
I just want
I
to
was
be
reaching
specific.
out, I'm speaking up for her,
Oh, yeah.
basically. She wanted me to bring it up, so I brought it up.
So,
She communicated with John and she's communicated with me and we've responded to her and I've not heard back from her.
Yeah. Okay.
But if there's something that, if you want to talk about whether we should or should have a policy, we can certainly do that. I'm not sure whether you want to do that here or at the policy committee.
So why don't you reach out to her, see if she's satisfied with what answer she has, and if not, just shoot me an email.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to public comment.
Before you
Sorry.
do, we've had a request from Jess Kessler, who is a Roland Fellow. She received a fellowship from the Roland Foundation. She is a clinician at Green Mountain. She's been working on this all year. She's got a whole advisory committee that she's been working with, and she would like to present to the board and share with you her work, and asked whether she could do that in May.
Absolutely. All right, so Jess Kessler, presentation. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, all right, and then we're gonna move on to public comment.
Otis Nelson. I just wanted to stand up and say that I went to the Chester Elementary School fundraiser spaghetti dinner tonight. Fantastic. The kids come over, they tell you what the menu is, they take your order, they bring you drinks, they bring you food. It was great. The good kids did fantastic. That's it.
Thank you. It's busy.
They had it on our board meeting last year too. We couldn't do that.
Can we relocate?
Go to dinner. Can I say
And
it?
as we have frequently requested,
You'll get more public comment.
not the third Thursday.
Okay, so the next item is our executive session. This is two-step motion.
Motion to find that premature general public knowledge of discussions regarding contracts place the board at substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing negotiation strategies for the contract terms as discussed in open session.
Okay, all in favor? First? Okay.
Motion to enter executive session to discuss contracts for principals and other non-bargaining unit employees under provisions of Title I VSA 313A1A, providing Ms. Spearman and Ms. Hamel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll enter into executive session.
Yeah.
Okay.